Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Buck Stops Here. I am Catherine Murray. Well, the tech stocks continue to power the markets higher. The big question, of course, is can they continue to move higher in their valuations, and what are their growth opportunities? So for a deep dive into the tech sector, we're joined by Charlie Miner. He is a senior tech analyst at Third Bridge. Charlie, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. A lot to delve into. I really kind of want to do some deep dives into very specific companies, but let's start from a macro perspective. What are you seeing from the tech trend perspective right now? Why are we seeing these markets just continue to power higher?
Yeah, really an incredible run. We think back to early April, the NASDAQ was down 20% on the year. We're now looking at it almost up 10%, so almost a 30 percentage point swing over the last 3 months. And we really came into the year with a lot of hurdles to get by from an investor perspective, thinking about election uncertainty into tariffs and deficits and inflation. And not that we're clear of any of these things just yet, but we've sort of checked the box in terms of investors gaining enough comfort to redeploy their capital into these public markets. And when you look at opportunities in public equities today, there's really nothing more exciting than the tech sector. And I know AI, we've been waiting for a little bit more in terms of software spend and some of the potential impacts. But in terms of the opportunity, a lot of these infrastructure stocks are driving our way back to these record highs. I mean, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, these companies that we're seeing deploying tens of billions in CapEx every quarter, continuing to drive enthusiasm. And I think investors are flocking back to these very opportunistic stocks.
So it seems as though it was the AI sector or growth belief that was powering the market higher. And then, of course, we saw a significant dip because of DeepSeek. But at the same time, people have kind of put that in the rearview mirror and are getting back into these AI stocks, let alone the energy stocks associated with them. But do you think that when you take a look at the CapEx spend, the billions of dollars, there is a concern that some of that will be wasted, that it won't come to fruition?
Yeah, it's a very fair concern. Investors are going to watch those CapEx numbers and forecasts very closely at earnings over the next 2 weeks. I think the sentiment is if you're a Meta, if you're a Google or a Microsoft, there's just too much risk in not investing. We went through a period in 2022 where there was this big shift towards profitability, away from grow at all costs, that has sort of reversed now with this AI opportunity. And there's just too much potential revenue on the table. In terms of winners and losers, it's going to be too pronounced over the next, whether it's 1, 2, 3 years. You have to make the investment right now. And I think that's why, despite elevated CapEx forecasts for someone like Meta, people continue to be comfortable. They recognize the opportunity and they want to see these big companies with tens of billions of dollars in cash taking these types of swings. So I think it's just investors sort of catching up to the potential of this AI, and that's why we're seeing elevated forecasts.
So the big question is, of course, who do you think is leading the charge? Very difficult to answer, but let's take a look at stock specifics. What do you think about Google right now?
Yeah, I mean, Google's a really interesting one. I mean, we'll get to NVIDIA, I'm sure. They're the ones powering this entire surge. And when you think about if you're bullish on AI, look no further than NVIDIA. It's going to be very hard to displace them and what they're doing for this momentum. Google's an interesting one. It's one of the more controversial names in the Mag 7 right now, and it's because they do about $200 billion a year in search revenue. That feels very vulnerable to a lot of people. I mean, you think about ChatGPT, which has been this buzzword since November of 2022. More and more people are using it. A lot of people are recognizing the value. And there was this period where Google felt like they were falling behind, or where it felt inevitable that they were going to lose market share, of which they have about 90% of the search engine market share. That said, I think Google is starting to gain back some of their ground. Gemini is performing very well, their model. They've introduced AI mode, which is the competition to something like ChatGPT. So it continues to be a question mark, but right now, I think Google is relatively confident in where they are in this AI race.
Right. And it is difficult, though, because there's a lot of people who believe that even if they have 90% of the search market and that it decreases to even 70 or 80 because they've got to share some of that with other AI models, that, what's the company worth? And that's one of the key concerns, is that they're going to be sharing and losing market share. But I think that you've suggested that there's other aspects of the company's employing right now that's actually, to your point, turning it around. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.